in hospice, so she's going to be doing a presentation on communication today. And if we have time at the end, I may do a part about self-care if we've got that time. If not, we can do that at another point in time, so I want to get out here by 4:30. So I'll hand it over to Susan.
Well, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I was asked to do this on communication, not because I'm particularly an expert, but I do a lot of it. So I'm just going to share, some thoughts with you and a little bit of an activity later. The first thing I wanted to do is just something that's sort of fun. You probably have seen something like this. You may not have seen this one because it's sort of a modern version of it. But for me, it just sort of represents how bad communication can go at times. And so it's the who's on first, the Abbott and Costello, but you'll see a new twist to it or new characters to it. So we'll watch this. It's short. Uh-oh. You have to listen really closely.
Sorry, I just muted it too. Oh, I love
Lord.
It's very simple. This fella's actual name is WHO, and this fella's actual given birth name is what? WHAT. Well, that clears it up. Why didn't you just say that in the first place? But wait, who are you? I don't know. For your face!
well, hopefully you don't communicate like that, or you don't have to communicate like that, but I just think that it sort of represents communication at its worst, and it's sort of fun. So at the end of the day, we can all use a smile, I hope. So anyway, this topic is on communication. That's my name.
Oh, yeah.
So there's two categories of communication. One verbal, the other is nonverbal. And we'll keep talking about those two, but those are sort of the two main categories of communication. And then I put two parts of communication. I couldn't really figure out what that the word should be as far as when I came up with parts. It was sort of like trying to do the who's on first scene, because it's a hard word to come up with. So I named it parts, but it's speaking and listening. You know, whenever we're communicating with someone, then there's a speaking to it, and then there's a listening to it. And so some simple things about verbal communication. You know, you're all familiar with how to verbally communicate, but something that's really important as you're working with your patients and families is good eye contact. If I'm going down here and I'm going to talk with Rachel here, I'm going to use you, Rachel, but if I'm talking if my eyes are looking somewhere else, then Rachel's going to wonder what the heck is going on. So if I'm talking back here and I'm supposed to be talking with Rachel, it gets a little confusing, and it gets like you don't really think that you are present with the patient or the family. And so to use good eye contact is important. And I put the best method of communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. It starts with compassion, and you guys are in the business of compassion, and so I'm sure you automatically sort of do the things that are compassionate, but it's important as those that are caring for patients and family that you sort of start there, and so the compassion is where it begins. And then I put the unclear messages can be sent and received when nonverbal communication doesn't match the words being used. And again, if I am saying something but my body language is saying something else, then I sort of give mixed feelings about that. I need my own notes. I realized I was just sort of winging it here. We don't want to do that. So, and then nonverbal communication, as much as 90% of our communication is considered nonverbal. If I come in to a room, I'm going to do this softly because I don't want to scare anyone, but if I come in and I'm going to throw my book down, what do you think? I'm probably mad, probably angry. If I'm talking to someone and I fold my arms, what do you think? Probably either I'm cold, which often is the case for me, but a lot of times I'm sort of closing myself off. And so you have to be mindful of the non-verbal stuff that you're doing, because people are reading that and they're evaluating your compassion, they're evaluating your interest in them, and so you have to be mindful of the nonverbal things that you're doing. And so I guess, because this can be a little bit of class participation, and some of you are probably more actors and actresses than others, so I won't, if you don't want to do it, you can do it in your head, you don't have to actually do it, but think of how you would show me that you're mad without saying anything. Can you show me that you're mad without saying a word? Okay, are we going to have anybody that's an actress in here that can do it? Thank you. Good one.
That was a good one.
Good one. How about that you're bored? Sort of the same thing, although there was a difference, so I knew the difference. So I'm watching you. So if you show me your board, then actually there's not much I can do about it, but nevertheless. Anyway, and then if you're happy,
Smile.
you're smiling, you're perky, you're sitting up, you're giving me a lot of attention, or whoever you're being happy with. And then if you're confused, you don't know what the heck I'm talking about. A lot of scowling, your eyebrows raised. And so, we just need to be mindful that all of that is happening through nonverbal cues. And then the two parts, remember I said the two parts are speaking and listening. And so speaking, just a few different things. There's open-ended questions, and there's closed-ended questions. And I don't know if that's a concept that you have talked about before. Probably, if you've done this training or other trainings, you've probably heard and talked about open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. But open-ended questions really encourage conversation. Closed-ended questions really don't. If I say, how many kids do you have? That's pretty much a closed-ended question. You're going to tell me 3, 4, 0, whatever that answer is. If I say, do you have pain? Yes or no? Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 to 10. All of those things that are important, and so that's something that you have to do. But if you want to have conversation with them, you're going to do something a little bit more open-ended, sort of like, tell me about your kids. Tell me how you feel today. Those kind of things. And then professionalism. What's professionalism to you guys? Anyone answer what you think professional is? What do I mean by professionalism?
Showing respect and consideration.
Showing respect, consideration. Representing St. Vincent well.
Positive.
Positive
manner.
So you are representing St. Vincent, and you're representing yourself, your own integrity, and so you want to show respect. You want to be mindful of how to act. You don't want to be rude, those kind of things. And boundaries. That's a tough topic, and that's really a topic outside of communication. But I wanted to put it here a little bit because I think it is important to be mindful of boundaries. Nancy and I talk about self-care because we're part of a self-care committee, and boundaries is an issue for self-care. You want to make sure that, and it's sometimes hard to know where those boundaries start and end. I can only speak from my experience, but you guys will have your own examples. But we have a patient that dies, and the family member is, I have really built a good relationship with them, and so they're grieving. So am I over the boundaries if I go out to lunch with them after the patient has died?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I over the boundaries if I go to the funeral? Sometimes I officiate.
I don't think so at all.
But, so you guys have those same decisions to make, like you get close to a patient or family, and then when the patient dies, where do you draw the line? And so it is about self-care, and it's about trying to hang on to your own boundaries of what feels appropriate. Keeps buzzing on my hip, and I hear him. So anyway, I think boundaries is a part of self-care, and it's just being taking care. It is taking care of yourself, and it's representing again, St. Vincent in a healthy and respectful way. So some simple guidelines, some of them we already really said, but to use open-ended questions when possible, you have to rate pain, you have to do that, and so those are sort of, I'm going to throw this thing. You have to do those, and those are,
That's part of your self-care.
yeah, throw the pager away. But you know, you have to do those. But if you want to build a relationship and you have opportunity to build a relationship, then you probably want to use some open-ended questions, and so then you can share about, they can share about their stories. You don't want to talk down to patients. I can't imagine, at least the ones that I know in the room, I'm sure you don't talk down to the patients, but just a point to be made. Avoid using medical terms, slang, or acronyms like IDG and POC. I regularly have to remember not to say IDG. That's such a term for us, so common for us, that I often want to use that term. You know, you probably have your own acronyms that you use, so you just need to be mindful because patients and families aren't going to really know what you're talking about, and it makes them feel excluded from the conversation. If you don't know appropriate behavior for a specific culture, you ask. You can ask other staff members because maybe they, you know, if you ask the nurse, maybe they already have had conversations. You can ask the social worker or the chaplain because, again, maybe we've already had conversations. It's not like I'm an expert on all the cultures because I'm not, but I do ask families or patients what's appropriate, you know, for them. And you can do that too, you know, just ask them what they need and what they want. And if you ask them, you know, more times than not, they're going to be very glad to just give you information that then you can honor in the future. Sometimes in some cultures, no, you know, they don't want you to look at them in the eye. Sometimes, you know, women have a different role. They don't, you know, might not want to serve a man. You know, there's lots of different things in cultures like that. And so if someone from a different culture, you just need to be, again, mindful of what their concerns might be. I can't stand up here and tell you I know all these different cultures because I don't, but it's a case by case. If you know they're from a different culture, then you either need to ask them or you need to find out someone that has sort of learned what is important to them. Convey warmth and compassion, that's probably a given. And be aware of your nonverbal cues. Like I said, you know, you're communicating constantly by your nonverbal cues. Something, you know, like something that it drives me crazy, but I see it a lot is if I'm up here and I'm really bugged by the pager, how many pages do I have to have? But if I'm constantly looking at the door, I'm trying to talk and I'm constantly looking at the door, what do you think?
You ready to
I'm not
go.
really wanting to be right here. I'm looking, you know, I've got something else I'm wanting to do, like this stupid pager, so I'm not doing a very good. That's a really good example. I should be ignoring it. I should have taken it off. But again, it's a good example, however, that, you know, if you're constantly, like if I'm with a patient or a family and my pager goes off, I do need to look at it if I'm out in the field. I need to see if there's been a death and that someone is needing me. And so usually I say, excuse me, I need to look at my pager, and I'll look at it just to make sure. I take a quick look to make sure it's not something that's specifically for me. And if it's not, then I put it back and keep going. If you don't understand something that someone's saying, whether it's because you can't understand them, or you can't understand the words that they're saying, or in any way that you can't understand, then you need to keep asking. I know that I have my own issue when I've asked them 2 or 3 times, and I still don't really understand, and it gets like embarrassing to have to keep asking. And so you have to just, you know, again, you use your professional judgment of, is it something that you need? If you're talking about a medical, if they're in pain, obviously you need to keep asking. You need to keep figuring it out. If it's about, you know, if you know that the conversation's about their aunt in a different state, then maybe that little bit of isn't important. So you have to use your own judgment. You guys know how to do that. I put avoid asking why. Why is considered a judgment word, and so like if I say, why are you doing that? It sort of sounds like I'm critiquing you. And I don't really mean it as a critique, but if I use the word why, it's a judgment. And so be careful of using it. Sometimes, again, you might use the word why for, you know, a very appropriate reason, but why does make people feel like you're judging them. And then the other side of it is listening. When your patient and families are speaking, really pay attention. Really listen to them. Give them good eye contact. Really listen to them. Monitor their body language and their nonverbal cues to see if it matches what they're saying. If I say, I'm not in pain, what do you think?
You're in pain.
You're in pain. And you guys get that probably more than I do, but you know, if you're asking and they say no, but their body's screaming that they're in pain, then you have to look a little harder. Do not interrupt while they're speaking. I think that's common courtesy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And allow ample time before you respond. It's okay to wait in silence. We're all a little uncomfortable with silence. If I ask you a question and you don't answer me quickly, I'm thinking, did you hear me? What's going on? But be patient, especially with a patient that is ill and may have a little slower response, or maybe they're thinking. So it's okay to wait in silence and let them have some time. So, the last little piece is on Enneagrams. And I don't know if you've ever heard that term before. And it's good. We're going to do something at a really, really high level. So we're not going to really get very deep in it because it would take way too long. But I think it's fun stuff, personally. And so I wanted to introduce it. You've probably heard of Myers-Briggs profiles. You may have taken that. So it's a similar tool to find out sort of what your style is. And the main reason I put it, that I think it belongs with communication, is it's a reminder that we are all,
Is that the introvert, extrovert personality type?
well, it's similar. It's not exactly that, but it's similar. The reason I think it's important to talk about with communication is because we're all different. We're all different. We all have different lenses that we look through. And so sometimes I get really frustrated with somebody, like Nancy. I might get really frustrated with her. I'll use her as an example, but I might get really frustrated with her because I can't, something's not right. We're looking at something totally different. Well, it's because we are different and we have a different lens that we look through. So all I'm going to do is read through these really quickly, and you may feel like many of them describe you, but you're going to try to come up with one that you feel like just really says who you are. Now these are really abbreviated versions, and so it's possible you may not think there's one, but we'll get the exercise. So number one, I have high internal standards for correctness, and I expect myself to live up to those standards. It's easy for me to see what's wrong with things as they are, and to see how they could be improved. I may come across to some people as overcritical or demanding, but it's hard for me to ignore or accept things that are not done the right way. So that's one type. 2, I am sensitive to other people's feelings. I can see what they need even when I don't know them. Sometimes it's frustrating to be so aware of people's needs, especially their pain or unhappiness, because I'm not able to do as much for them as I'd like to. It's easy for me to give of myself. I think that should be wish I were better at saying no, because I end up putting more energy into caring for others than taking care of myself. Does that describe you? 3, being the best at what I do is a strong motivator for me, and I have received a lot of recognition over the years for my accomplishments. I get a lot done and successful in almost everything I take on. I have more to do than will fit into the time available, so I often set aside feelings in order to get things done. Does that describe you? 4, I'm a sensitive person with intense feelings. I often feel misunderstood and a bit lonely because I feel different from everyone else. My behavior can appear like drama to others, and I have been criticized for being oversensitive and over-amplifying my feelings. What is really going on inside is my longing for both emotional connection and a deeply felt experience or relationship. Does that describe you? 5, I would characterize myself as a quiet, analytical person who needs more time alone than most people do. I usually prefer to observe what's going on rather than be involved in the middle of it. I don't like people to place too many demands on me or to expect me to know and report how I'm feeling. Does that describe you? I have a vivid imagination, especially when it comes to what might be threatening to safety or security. I can usually spot what could be dangerous or harmful and may experience as much fear as if it were really happening. I either always avoid danger or always challenge it head on. I would like for life to be more certain, but in general I seem to doubt the people and things around me. Does that describe you? 7, I am an optimistic person who enjoys coming up with new and interesting things to do. I have a very active mind, excuse me, that quickly moves back and forth between different ideas. I like to get a global picture of how all these ideas fit together. I get excited when I can connect concepts that initially don't appear to be related. I can have a hard time sticking to repetitive and unrewarding tasks. Can I get you to read?
Oh, sure. So then I am,
8.
number 8, I approach things in an all or nothing way, especially issues that matter to me. I place a lot of value on being strong, honest, and dependable. What you see is what you get. I don't trust others until they have proved themselves to be reliable. I like people to be direct with me, and I know when someone is being devious, lying, or trying to manipulate me. And then number 9, I seem to be able to see all points of view pretty easily. I may even appear indecisive at times because I can see advantages and disadvantages of all sides. The ability to see all sides makes me good at helping people resolve their differences. I tend to avoid conflict by going along with what others want unless the issues are very important. People tend to consider me easygoing, pleasing, and agreeable. So you get to pick one of these.
Yeah, so take a minute. I don't have to do that, so I'm just going to give you a couple. Can you guys share?
Which one is you guys? 2. I knew what you
Got a little dry there. Talking too much.
Sometimes you get choked.
I know. Once I start, I can't. All right. Well, I know that I'm only giving you very few minutes, and so I know that you probably haven't really come up with the one, but you get a sense of probably what might be the one that fits you. Is anyone willing to share which one you think? Which number? 2. There's probably a lot of 2s in here, actually.
Yeah.
You're sort of in the profession of a 2. All right. Well, you can keep looking at them. Like I said, it's called Enneagrams. I guess it says that on the top. So if you are interested, there's tons of books, tons and tons of books. Lots of things on the internet. There's even some free sites that you can actually take a test and answer questions, and it will tell you, it'll give you a best guess of what you are. And like I said, we're just doing sort of a really high level of it. But then I passed this sheet out too, because it gives you a sense of how it fits together. The 9 personalities, 1 through 9, sort of make a whole circle. And so, for example, I am a 9, and so my title, it says mediator on here. Sometimes I'm called a peacemaker, but it very much fits me. I like peace. I don't like conflict. I can mediate. I can bring people together really well, which can be a strength, but with every one of these, there's goods and bads to it. So, you know, so if you're a 1, you're a perfectionist. And so if you know that title, it might help you a little bit more decide if that's sort of where you fit. You probably have been called a perfectionist if that's what you are, because people get annoyed at perfectionists because you know everyone needs to be perfect, and so you can get annoyed at them. A 2 on here is called a giver. It can be called a helper. Like I said, there's probably a lot of you that are 2s. Your nature, your job is a helping job, and so if you like your job, you feel called to your job, you're probably pretty comfortable as a 2. The 3 is an achiever or a performer. You thrive on task, complete, and applause. And again, there's goods and bads, so don't look at applause as a bad thing. It's just that's sort of what motivates you, is for other people to recognize. And then 4 is romantic. You long for sort of relationship, being authentic, emotional connections. So that's the 4. So if you really like to have a lot of deep conversations with your best friend, you probably have some 4 in you. Some of you don't want to have deep conversations at all, I'm sure. The 5, the observer, you withdraw from privacy, you gather information to formulate high efficient theories, which to keep the world at a distance. You don't like emotion. So, for example, if the 4 who loves deep conversation and the 5 who wants nothing to do with deep conversation are trying to communicate, what happens? It's hard stuff. It's really hard. And so if you have people that you have a hard time communicating with, it may be because you're sort of in the opposite realm. A 6, a loyal skeptic. You're analytical, avoids feeling helpless with a sharp eye for what might go wrong. So I'm always looking to see how something's not going to work. And so these people might have a really hard time with the change that's happening. It's not going to work. I know it's not going to work. And so, again, be mindful that the lens that you look through is guiding how you react. 7, the epicure delights in pleasurable alternatives, revels in potentials, avoids pain and anything that might lead to pain. You want everything to be good, look good, feel good. And then 8, the protector, controls the environment with direct, forceful means. Personal vulnerability is avoided by championing single-minded goals. And then the 9, as I said, I'm very good at 9. I see both sides of everything. That can be a really good thing, but it can be a terrible thing. It's a curse at times because I see both sides. I see every side of everything. And so it's really hard for me to tell you what I think. I can usually get there, but nevertheless, it's hard for me to tell you what I think. I like harmony, and 9s like harmony. 9 has a little bit of everybody in them, and so I can relate to every one of you fairly well because I have a little bit of me, or you in me. So, anyway, any questions? I know it's a really quick overview of it. Like I said, there's lots of resources out there if you think you might be interested in learning more. Certainly there's plenty of ways to learn more. So I think it's time you can take your post-test and we'll wrap it up.